the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Week 9 rankings by position. If you ever need to check in on the rankings to get them updated, you can find them in the show notes right now, or you can get them sent to you completely free to your inbox every Wednesday if you sub to the free Mayo Media newsletter. Additionally, I will have an extra show on Saturdays, like always, to refresh the rankings and update the injury report for any last-second news, along with a lot more stuff than that, but that's the crux of that show. So Saturdays on the Pat Mayo Experience is where you can find that. Remember to smash the like and sub to the channel while you're here. We'll also be doing Thursday night football plays as well, and that's where we're going to start, because sometimes the rankings can be affected, especially the decisions that you need to make by Thursday night football. Whether you want to start a receiver, but you're waiting for that guy, this guy. Here's what we're dealing with on Thursday night. Texans at the Jets. It's not expected to be a high-scoring game, but who knows with these teams? Although the Texans do bring in the second-rated defense per DVOA so far this season. Two bad offensive lines and two lines that, on the other side of the ball, create a ton of pressure. So expect a lot of quick throwing and maybe even a lot of running. Maybe even some quarterback scrambles, at least on one side. And that's where we're going with underdog picks to start everything off. Now, if you use code Mayo at underdog right now, you can get a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. You can also unlock the CJ Stroud free pick for Thursday Night Football, where I am not a new player. I do not have that luxury. So my three plays, using one of the discounts that's up there, which is available to everyone right now, is Joe Mixon, higher than 59.5 rushing yards. That's down from the 70.5, which is, a nice little bonus. The Jets have a terrible run defense. Joe Mixon, I have rated as my number one running back for the week. They're going to be running a ton, especially devoid of Stefon Diggs and down Nico Collins, and not knowing how this pass offense is going to look. That Joe Mixon sits at number one in the running back rankings. If I have him at number one, I like him to rush for more than 60 yards in this game. So that's the first one that I'm taking. CJ Stroud, I am also going higher than 8.5 rushing yards as well. I just spoke about it. Bad offensive line, great pressure from the Jets, a lack of receiving options right now that are quality at getting open very quickly, so you can expect him to be on the run a little bit. He's hit this in 5 of his past 8 starts, so it's like a 50-50 proposition, but just analyzing how this game is going to go, I like him higher than the 8.5 rushing yards in this game. I do not like him at the quarterback position this week in terms of overall fantasy upside, but to get 10 rushing yards, or hell, 9 rushing yards would be fine. But if you use code Mayo and you're new, you can just add the CJ Stroud free pick in replacement of this spot for no cost to yourself. It will remain at exactly the same odds. The other way that I'm going in this game is on the other side of the ball, because you can't just take all the players from the same team. Braylon Allen, lower than 20.5 rushing yards against the second-ranked Texans rush defense. Maybe he can get there, but we've just not seen a want to use Braylon Allen as much since the Davante Adams trade has happened. They've tried to reestablish Breece Hall in this game for this team, and when we take a look at the rankings themselves, you can see that Breece Hall does come in at number 13. He can definitely outshine that ranking this week, but this is half-point PPR rankings, not full-point PPR. I can see a lot of damage being done through the air, but the Texans defense has just been so good that you have to think that without 2 touchdowns in this game, it's going to be difficult for him to breach inside the top 5 for the week at running back, and I just find that to not be the most likely scenario for Breece Hall in this game, but I do think that he will get enough of the workload to really demolish Braylon Allen. And the worst-case scenario would be, not for the underdog play, because this would probably actually work out, is that they continue to bring Braylon Allen in at like the 3-yard line or on short yardage situations where he could steal a potential touchdown from Breece Hall, and then both of them are screwed in this game. So that's why he's down at number 13 in the rankings this week. To get to the running back injuries that we're monitoring the most right now, Tyrone Tracy is expected to be out in this game. He has not passed concussion protocol as of yet, and being on a short week, it's probably not going to happen against Washington. Pretty decent matchup against Washington, but for all intents and purposes, and in the rankings, he is not in right now. Again, you can find all of the rankings down in the description and the show notes of the podcast or video if you're looking for them in the Mayo Media newsletter. So we got to scroll down a little bit to find David's Devin Singletary here. Where did I put Devin Singletary in the rankings? He should be a little bit higher than this. There he is, number 27 in the rankings. That's one spot behind Rico Dowdle, who is expected to play this week, and one spot ahead of Rachaad White. You have that three-headed backfield. I like White a lot because of the passing game work he's going to get, and as 9-point underdogs against the Chiefs on Monday night, you could have a very nice PPR game here, although we've seen Bucky Irving continue to steal the most valuable touches on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's going to be the one who's carrying the ball on the ground a lot, and he is being worked in the passing game. Plus, you still have Sean Tucker in this offense, who after that Saints game when he absolutely exploded, they're just using him more. It's not that they're using him enough to be fantasy viable, but they're using him enough to take away from the overall upside of both White and Bucky Irving in this game. So I have White ahead of Bucky Irving because I expect them as 9-point dogs to be passing a ton against the Chiefs, especially with the pressure and now Uche on that team as well that they can bring, and just how decimated that the Bucs offense is overall. A lot of short yardage plays, hence why you see Rachaad White so much higher in the rankings, than all of the other Tampa Bay running backs, 27 to 33, all the way down to Sean Tucker at number 46 in the rankings right now. But it's a situation where he's going to have to kind of do it all from the air. If he sneaks in a touchdown, he'll outperform that spot, but it's probably unlikely of all of the players on the Bucs right now, unless he breaks a pass from more than 10 yards out, that he's going to score. So hence why he is down in the rankings a little bit and behind someone like Devin Singletary, who should be the primary ball handler, both on the ground and through the air in the backfield for the Giants against Washington. Kendre Miller is leaning out for the New Orleans Saints against the Carolina Panthers in a really nice spot. I actually like the Saints a lot in this game. Derek Carr is going to return. So you'll see that we have Alvin Kamara at number 11 in the rankings. Taysom Hill should be back as well for the New Orleans Saints, which just always runs the risk of him stealing a touchdown down by the goal line. Like when you're trying to figure out the running back rankings week to week, yeah, Kamara could score 40 points. We know that. But at the same time, he could just do 80 between on the ground or 60 on the ground, because frankly, they don't love running the ball a ton, and then pick up another 50 through the air. That's great and everything. There's 13 points right there, plus the receptions. That gets you to 16. But if you're not getting all of the goal line touches, which he's like 50-50 with Taysom Hill, when Taysom Hill is healthy, then all of a sudden it's not looking so good for his overall fantasy upside as well. So I'm trying to do these rankings, not necessarily of the median projection, but of where the most likely range of outcome is going to fall. And that's slightly above, the Breece Halls and James Connors of the world, or the James Cook, because we know he could have that explosive game. Although we know that James Cook can have that too. We just saw that last week. But this week against the Dolphins, that could be a little bit of a different situation. But with Alvin Kamara, I just like the situations for the running backs ahead of him a lot more. But it's not like you're going to sit Alvin Kamara in this circumstance. Hell, if you're looking at the prop market or even on underdog, Jamal Williams with Kendre Miller out might actually be not a good play for fantasy, but a good play to have more than 13 yards rushing in the game. Because if they end up getting up by a ton, I'm guessing with so many injuries on the Saints team, because Bub Means doesn't seem like he's going to play with this ankle injury, so he'll take him out of the rankings, move Tipton up, not substantially so, because he's not very good, but this is what the Saints are dealing with right now. It's not a great situation. So if you can build some sort of cushion against the Panthers, I'm not saying they're going to take all of their guys out of the game, but they might be a bit more pensive to run them all into the ground up by 20 in the fourth quarter. Then you might start seeing some of the backups come into the game. On the other side of the ball, Jonathan Brooks could play this week. Now, I believe it's next week. Yeah, next week they go to Germany to play the Giants. And I'm not quite sure what the pup rules are for him, but they might keep him out of that game. They have a bye week, then bring him back after. Obviously, his status will greatly affect what happens with Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is already down in the running back rankings to the lowest end of running back 2 at running back number 24 this week. He was still able to put up 13 PPR points last week, even though they were getting absolutely clobbered against a good Denver defense. Then against the Saints, he should see the majority of the run, but I just do not like him with Bryce Young starting at quarterback. With Andy Dalton, at least that's serviceable. It's not that the Panthers are good with Andy Dalton. They're not. They've won one game. They've covered one game this season. But at least they're functional offensively. They're outside of one drive, the first drive, and I guess the last drive too, when it was absolute garbage time. Bryce Young is non-functional in this Carolina offense, and he drags everyone else down with him. He's like the gypsy from Drag Me to Hell. He is trying to drag you to hell. That is what's happening to these skilled position players on the Panthers right now with Bryce Young at quarterback. So there's not a ton of upside for Hubbard. He's going to get his 10 to 15 touches in this game. If it's closer, he'll end up with more. He'll get the goal line carries, but who knows if they're even going to get close to the goal line. It's like the Ramondre situation. I have more faith in Chuba Hubbard maintaining and being utilized in that offense, although the game should be closer with New England and Tennessee. You still have Gibson to deal with in that situation with Jacoby Brissett back, most likely playing quarterback for the Patriots. It's just not a great spot for Ramondre. And the Titans defense isn't bad. If there's one thing about the Titans you could point to, like, hey, that's not so bad, it is their defense. I know last week the box score probably wouldn't show that, getting shellacked by the Lions, but it was a lot of special teams that really did in the Titans last week against Detroit. I mean, they had more points than Goff had passing yards at one point, so that's kind of telling of they did get gashed on the ground by Gibbs and Montgomery, but Stevenson and Gibson are not those guys. They don't have the number one run offense like the Lions do, and especially with Brissett back, you can bring everyone closer to the line knowing that he's probably just not going to throw it over your head. Jerome Ford might be back for the Browns, but I don't think that has any effect on Nick Chubb whatsoever. I have Chubb at number 19 in the running back rankings right now. This would directly affect Pierre Strong as the receiving third down back for the Cleveland Browns. Chubb has seen his utilization go up from week 1 to week 2 and week 3. I would expect it to be more. Before long, he's going to be playing 70% of the snaps in this new look Cleveland Browns offense, which is not so bad. The Chargers defense has been pretty good, but they've also played a lot of weakling opponents. That Chubb should be able to get it going on the ground. And the biggest key here is not only is he getting healthier and Jameis providing a pulse at quarterback, is that the offensive line for the Browns is getting healthier as well. So they're actually they're winning some of the trench battles where they were not doing that for the first 7 weeks of the season. So Chubb, we still don't know how much he's going to touch the ball. And if they get behind, you're not going to see a ton of Chubb. That's when you would see Jerome Ford if he's back. If not, Pierre Strong. Not that you want to start those guys anyway, but with Chubb, if they keep this game close or they get up in a lead, we could see him back in that 15 to 20 carry range with all of the goal line work, which would be especially huge in a week where, listen, running back hasn't been as big of a problem as wide receiver has, but this is what we're going through right now with a lot of these injuries, that Nick Chubb would still become a pretty good play. Daddle, I mentioned before. Travis Etienne is leaning in, hence why I have Tank Bigsby down at number 29 in the rankings. I have Etienne at number 37, going up as gigantic underdogs against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have been very good at running the ball themselves, both with Hurts and Barkley, and their offense just looks dynamically different since A.J. Brown returned. Like, he is the engine that makes that offense go boom, and since they've come back, the Eagles have looked very good. In catch-up spots, I'm still not sure what the Bigsby-ETN split is going to be and how Dearness Johnson actually factors into that as well, because even before, well, it's not even before ETN was hurt, before he was fully hurt. He was dealing with the hamstring, then he was dealing with the shoulder. We started to see a little bit more Dearness Johnson in catch-up spots over Tank Bigsby. Now, if you think that the Jags keep this close or the Jags potentially win this game, then Bigsby's a much better play than where I have him ranked. Frankly, I don't think that the Jags win this game, so hence why I moved him down in the running back rankings this week. Tajay Spears should be back. I have him leaning as in terms of the injury report right now, so that bumps down Tony Pollard in this game, although his favorites against the Patriots. Worth noting, the Pollard popped up Wednesday with a foot injury on the injury report. No idea if that's substantial, whether it's a veteran day of rest. Wednesday doesn't really tell us the whole story, why the Saturday show on the Pat Mayo Experience is so important, because we'll have the finalized details of how that injury report is going to go. I have Tony Pollard at number 23 in the running back rankings this week. If they do fall behind to the Patriots, which right now is unlikely, especially to get down by multiple scores, that's when Spears being eased back in would be used in that receiving role. So kind of cancel out most of the receiving role that you would think that Pollard would get, but he'll get the goal line touches, he'll get first crack, first and second down, and handle the majority of the carries on the ground as well. It's a pretty decent spot for him, but if the game goes awry because it's the Titans, then all of a sudden it could be a problem. I still don't even know if Will Levis is starting or not. I don't think that he is. It's probably going to be Mason Rudolph, but there's a chance that Levis gets sucked back in to the starter's job this week against the Patriots as well. The final one is Keaton Mitchell. I have him expected as out right now, although he is practicing in full. I am doubtful that the Ravens are going to activate him. Again, this is something we're going to find out later on in the week. I don't think this actually hurts Derrick Henry at all. Derrick Henry is, he's the favorite right now for Offensive Player of the Year, so I think that he is going to be fine. He's number 7 in the running back rankings this week against a good Denver defense, but not one where I'd sit Derrick Henry. This is a pure Justice Hill. If you were thinking about ever starting him as a flex or even on bye weeks trying to put him in to salvage some fantasy points, this is where Keaton Mitchell might actually have a greater impact here. Justice Hill is very good at picking up the blitz. He's very good at pass protections. That's going to keep his job and keep him on the field somewhat. But for those very obvious passing downs where guys are actually running routes, if Keaton Mitchell is back to full speed, we saw the speed that he was able to bring last year, especially when he hits the corner. You get sort of the thunder with Derrick Henry, and you can get the lightning with Keaton Mitchell. It can make their offense, especially now with Deontay Johnson as well, look even more dynamic. I just don't think that he's going to go this week. So the big ones to watch out for really are Brooks and Keaton Mitchell when it comes down to the running backs this week, but I don't think that they'll have an impact on Derrick Henry. Chuba Hubbard, yes, I do think I would still play Hubbard over Brooks, especially in week 1 if that was the case, and you probably just would never see Miles Sanders again. Although it's the crappy Panthers, who knows? They'll probably give Miles Sanders like 30 carries, something absolutely moronic like that as they try to continue to tank for the first overall pick, unknowingly tank for the first overall pick. But I would not feel comfortable starting Jonathan Brooks week 1 back, and obviously you're not starting Keaton Mitchell, but Brooks would take away from Hubbard. Hubbard would move down from the mid-20s. He's at number 24 right now, and drop him down to that probably ahead of ETN, but mid-35 area. With I'd rather play Zach Moss than Chuba Hubbard at that point. I'd probably rather play Bucky Irving at that point. Would I play Raheem Mostert? Probably not. I'd probably have Chuba Hubbard at number 34, one spot behind Bucky Irving and one spot ahead of Austin Eckler in the Week 9 rankings should Jonathan Brooks end up active on Sunday. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. What's something you'd like to learn? Gardening? A new language? Or, for me personally, how to finally beat your best friend in golf. Not Cuss, but, my other friends. I want to beat them at golf. I can beat Cuss, no problem. Therapy can help reconnect you with your sense of wonder because your back-to-school era can come, honestly, at any age. It's helpful learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major traumas. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All the best things that you need. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/PatMayo today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PatMayo. Wide receiver injuries and news, because we'll start with the news. Deontay Johnson was traded to the Baltimore Ravens. Probably going to split time. He'll take over the Nelson Aguilar role, potentially for sure, and maybe even eat into Rashad Bateman eventually in week number 1 with the Ravens. Not quite sure how that's going to pan out. I do have him in the rankings right now. If he's going to be active, I have him at number 51, so he's not a must start this week. We just haven't seen a lot of these receivers do a ton of damage. The Bills actively tried to get Amari Cooper a touchdown the first week that he played, and they did, but it's not like he was a huge fantasy superstar. Deontay Johnson not as good as Amari Cooper, and the Ravens still have such a plethora of options that you never know where the ball is going to go anyway, even as 9-point favorites against the Broncos here. And even assuming that, Pat Surtain's able to lock down Zay Flowers, which I don't think is going to be like a one-on-one matchup the entire game. Just don't have a ton of faith in Deontay Johnson here in week 1. So I have him at number 51 in the rankings. That's one spot behind Parker Washington, one spot ahead of Jalen Coker, who's probably spot he is taking right now on the Carolina Panthers. Allen Lazard is out for Thursday Night Football. T. Higgins I also have as leaning out. It's very difficult to figure out how this Bengals offense runs when T. Higgins isn't there. I think this has more of an effect for Mike Gesicki, who we saw utilized very largely last week as, they were in a pretty close game event at the beginning with the Eagles, then got blown out. They're big favorites this week against the Raiders, but it was Jamar Chase and then it was Mike Gesicki in the passing game. So I do have him as a top 15 option and a very streamable tight end this week. Yoshivas is a prayer. Essentially, I have him at number 53, as you can see, behind Jalen Coker. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's kind of useless in this game. But it's Jamar Chase or nothing against the Raiders for the Bengals side of the receiving core, at least. But with Deontay Johnson, it's tough to see. I have Juju Smith-Schuster as leaning out in this game. You can see we have, where do we go here on DeAndre Hopkins at number 34, more acclimated to this offense right now on Monday night against Tampa Bay. Everyone's lighting up Tampa Bay through the air, so So I would continue to go with that. Xavier Worthy at number 25 in the wide receiver rankings, assuming that there's no Juju, and that's the way that it looks at this moment in time. Bub Means, as mentioned before, is leaning out. It's not like I moved up Tipton at all. Chris Olave will play, but he is not going to wear the Guardian cap, although he seems to suffer a concussion or almost suffer a concussion every single week. I still have him at number 12 in the rankings. It's a really nice matchup against the Panthers with Derek Carr back, but you always have to worry that one big hit knocks him out of the game. So it doesn't come devoid of risk, but I do like Olave to light up this historically terrible Carolina pass defense at the moment. Jamison Williams is going to be out with the second game of his drug suspension, whether it's PEDs, whether it's Adderall, whatever it might be. He ain't playing is what's happening right now. And even against the Packers, it's Amon-Ra or bust at the receiver position. You could go to Khalif Raymond and hope he returns a touchdown. That's unlikely, although it did happen last week. Probably not going to happen 2 weeks in a row. Could it be Tim Patrick? Could it be Allen Robinson? Sure. You should have better options at receiver right now. Hell, you can go pick up Parker Washington if you want to, because Christian Kirk was lost for the season. We don't know if Brian Thomas is going to play, and we don't know if Gabe Davis is going to play. I think Davis plays. I think Thomas doesn't. Obviously, I'm wrong about all this stuff, hence why I do the update later on in the week. And if you sub to the newsletter right now, you will get the newsletter sent to your inbox for free on Saturday evening after I do the show. So I'll do the update in case we have, with all the information that we have on Saturday morning, then I'll send out the refresher with more news happening on Saturday evening. Then I'll update that with the rankings and injury report as we go into Sunday if you need to make some more decisions. Looking at it right now as I'm scrolling down through the wide receiver rankings, where do I have Gabe Davis? At number 39, I do have him ranked as the highest of the Jags receivers, and this is assuming Brian Thomas is out. Obviously, if Brian Thomas plays, you are playing Brian Thomas, a 7.5-point underdogs to the Eagles, but I do have Parker Washington at number 50. I think he's one of the better pickups of the week. Listen, if you missed out on Tillman or Jerry Jeudy, you have Coker and Parker Washington. I'd rather take Parker Washington solely for the fact that he could own this Christian Kirk role. B, he doesn't have Bryce Young throwing in the ball. He has Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence hasn't been great. He has no Bryce Young right now. Cooker's fine in super deep leagues, but Washington could be a viable low-end flex play, wide receiver T3 type guy in moderate to deeper leagues. And maybe he has more upside than that because he was a very good prospect coming out of college as well. And maybe he develops a rapport with Trevor Lawrence. And as without Christian Kirk, defenses start to shade a little bit more and pay more attention to Brian Thomas, which they just have not been doing enough of over the first half of the season, that maybe Parker Washington's a spot where he could clean some fantasy points for you this week. Amari Cooper popped up on the injury report with a wrist injury, so I did bump him down. He's probably going to play through it. I have him at number 38. That's the third of 3 Bills receivers this week. I have Keon Coleman at number 29 in the rankings, and I have Khalil Shakir at number 23 in the rankings against Miami. They were exposed bigly last week against the Cardinals. You know, their quote-unquote great pass defense. Their defense is banged up. They never play well against the Bills, and they were playing terrible pass offenses anyway, so it made their defense look a lot better than maybe statistically it actually was. So I have no problems running out the Bills receivers this week. Brian Thomas, as mentioned, is going to be questionable with this chest injury. If he plays, you play him. Make it easy as that. Then I'll bump down the other Jags receivers. Sterling Shepard is questionable with a hamstring injury, so for everyone who picked up the dudes last week on Tampa Bay, didn't really work out that well. Jalen McMillan should have had a big game, just didn't. So I still have him ranked the highest, number 43 against the Chiefs in a catch-up spot. Trey Palmer at number 48 in the receiver rankings right now. You have Jared, you have Miller. You just don't have to pay attention to these guys because what they want to do is throw to K-Dot and throw to the running backs, then throw to the receivers. If you're going to have someone with any sort of upside, McMillan would be the guy for me. Curtis Samuel, questionable with his pectoral muscle injury for the Bills as well. I have him as out. Jalen Polk, I also have as out right now as well. Then you have DK Metcalf, who should be coming back, albeit probably injured for this game, but trying to play through it against the Rams. I have him at number 16. He is the only receiver you can start with a modicum of confidence on the Seahawks right now because in a great spot last week without Metcalf against that Bills team where they were down the entire game, Lockett and JSN basically did nothing. It's not good. So maybe they need DK to be on the field to be any good. I have JSN at number 27, and I have Tyler Lockett at number 33. I expect a higher scoring game from the Seahawks, although their offense has been dramatically worse outdoors than indoors so far this season. But I just like the Rams a lot here. I think this could be a nice catch-up spot once again. If they play crappily once again, then all bets are off the Seattle offense for everyone who is not Kenneth Walker at the moment. Quentin Johnston could be back in for the Chargers this week, which would be really nice. I'd like to see him back out there. Did I end up ranking him? No, I did not. Oh, yes, I did. Down here. Where did I put him? Let's see. Shepard. No, I didn't put him in the rankings. Right now I have Josh Palmer at number 60, and I have Ladd McConkey all the way up at, where are you at, Ladd? Geez, lad. Number 24. So the lowest end of running or wide receiver number 2s. I think that even if Johnston comes back, I'm not going to drop McConkey down, but I probably would insert Johnston probably around this like Jerry Jeudy, Gabe Davis sort of range in the mid to low 30s. Probably one spot behind Xavier Legette. So at number 38 in the wide receiver rankings, where I would put QJ this week, coming off of his injury. But you have to remember, he's still coming off this ankle injury, which has cost him time. Hayden Hurst also trending to be back in right now, too. Some more targets could go there. Will Disley has shown himself to be capable in this offense, although Hurst probably takes away so much from him, it makes him unstartable. But now with Herbert spreading the ball around so much, it's difficult to see where it's going to go outside of McConkey in the receiving game. I would guess QJ is where that would end up going, but it's a wait and see sort of process with him right now. At tight end, you should probably know who you're starting at this point. Hawkinson is leaning in for the Vikings on Sunday Night Football against the Colts. Hayden Hurst is leaning in as well for the Chargers, bumping Will Disley down in the ranks. He's unstartable if Hayden Hurst plays. He's quite startable if Hayden Hurst sits. I'd have him at number 11 in the tight end rankings if Hayden Hurst is out. But since he is trending to be in, I have him down at, where did Will Disley go? Where'd you go, Will Disley? Number 27, behind Noah Gray. Precipitous drop-off for Will Disley if Hayden Hurst is active for the Chargers against the Browns. That's an early game, so you're going to know early on that whether you can stream him or not. Dallas Goedert projects to be out again for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, tight end's pretty easy. You got your guy that you want to play. If you have to stream, I'll give you some options. But, Kelsey, Bowers, McBride, Njoku, Otten, Pitts, Ingram, Ferguson is probably the safe tier of the 8. Then you're into that Kmet, Ertz, Kincaid, Laporta, where you're really just crossing your fingers and hoping. Those are the tight end ones right now. If you need the streamer, Hawkins I have at 14. It's a wait and see type deal with him. I don't know exactly how healthy he is, considering they've continued to sit him out after he's come back off the physically unable to perform list. I take my shot over like Mark Andrews this week. Mark Andrews is probably on that like Laporta, Kincaid type level as well. Taysom Hill, if you need him. It could be 0 points. It could be 3 rushing touchdowns for Taysom Hill. But Gesicki would be my best streamer of the week, assuming that T. Higgins is going to be out, because that's where the targets have been shadowed for Joe Burrow with Higgins out. They need to find a replacement for Higgins, and Yoshivas just isn't the guy. Jermaine Burton most certainly is not the guy. Eric All is all right, but Gesicki is the one that they tend to go to on those seam routes and crossing routes that they love to throw to T. Higgins. So if Higgins is out, Gesicki becomes the best stream play. If not, you're looking at like Hunter Henry. Conklin on Thursday night, but I'd still wait just to see if Gesicki was going to be, if Higgins was out and Gesicki would be the better streamer, because I do think that he is a better streamer than Tyler Conklin in week number 9. So the big news in the quarterback rankings, I do not have Jordan Love in the quarterback rankings. He keeps talking about wanting to play against the Lions this week, trying to tough it out. The Packers have a bye week in week number 10. I see no reason, if Jordan Love is like 50%, to throw him out there to potentially get him hurt for the rest of the year. So all the Packers receivers move down. Josh Jacobs actually moves up a little bit because he's been wildly efficient with Malik Willis. But the big thing in this game is how you predict it's going to go. If the Lions jump out to a big lead, it could be curtains for the Packers early. But with Malik Willis, they've shown a propensity to play close games, run the ball a ton, throw very safe, short routes to Jaden Reed or even Romeo Doubs, or even try to take the shot downfield with Christian Watson. I mean, the tight ends don't do a ton. Wicks doesn't do a ton with Malik Willis, and Willis will be on his way. So the offense as a whole is downgraded, but it's going to be slower, more methodical. They'll run the play clock. They'll run the ball more and just get everything churning a little bit. The clock won't stop as much with Malik Willis under center to try to shorten the game, limit the amount of possessions. That is the way that the Packers have been playing with Willis to win games, which they have been doing when Malik Willis ends up in. But I have Jalen Hurts at number 1, Daniels, Allen, Lamar, like all the guys guys that you want to play, you can play them. But Caleb Williams, I have at number 6. Very good matchup for him against the Cardinals this week. The Cardinals do not generate much pressure whatsoever, and we've seen Caleb Williams as a fantasy asset excel against teams who just don't harass him immediately. Still going to get harassed because the Bears' offensive line is yet good, but he should be able to buy himself some time, so maybe even a rushing over for him in this spot. But DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, even Keenan Allen can get themselves back on track this week in what should be a higher scoring game on a fast track indoors against Arizona. After that, you have sort of the three guys that are all kind of different versions of each other at this point. Cousins, Darnold, and Stafford, all in really good matchups. Then Mahomes, he's been really bad as a fantasy asset, but frankly, a lot of the mid-range quarterbacks with upsides don't have great matchups this week. Like Dak hasn't really been good. It's a pretty good matchup, although the pass defense for the Falcons has been pretty decent, let's say, especially at shutting down wide receiver ones. And Dallas only has one receiver who can get open. So if they can shut him down, they're going to shut the entire offense down. It's difficult to shut down CeeDee Lamb, hence why I still have Dak Prescott at number 11. But even like Kyler, the Bears defense has been good. Jameis, the Chargers defense has been good. Willis I have at number 14. The returning Derek Carr I have at number 15. Goff, Stroud, Lawrence, Geno. I have Goff apparently in again at number 20. He's actually at number 16. He should not be at number 20. That is an error on my part. Embarrassing. You think I'd edit it out of this video, but yeah, I'm not going to do that. You can see that, hey, we make mistakes sometimes too. He's doubled up in there. I'm shocked no one actually mentioned that to me. They've mentioned everything else to me in emails. And you can respond to the newsletter, to email me, by the way. I've heard about it on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, through email, but nothing about Jared Goff. Kind of funny. He is number 16 in the rankings this week. He just hasn't really, he's been good sometimes, but the downside for Goff, because the defense has been playing well, the special teams has been playing well, and they just enjoy running the ball so much and scoring touchdowns on the ground, that his fantasy upside is very limited in this spot. Plus, he's outdoors versus indoors. That's always a cut to Jared Goff's fantasy upside. They win games outdoors. He's been all right outdoors, but fantasy-wise, it's just not nearly the same. And the Packers' D's been actually pretty decent so far. And again, like I said, on the other side of the ball, Willis is going with Willis at quarterback, shortening the game, longer drives, fewer possessions. They can always overcome that with Jared Goff and this Lions offense, but it's just a substantial situation where the upside just probably isn't going to be there. That someone like Malik Willis, because of his rushing upside and potential to call his own number, is probably just a better play than Jared Goff this week. Stroud, who I mentioned earlier, is way down. I think I actually have him in the Stroud spot. Where is he? Yeah, CJ Stroud at number 17, one spot behind Goff. Just tough matchup against the Jets. Short week, Thursday Night Football, devoid of receivers, bad offensive line, good pressure on the other side. Just I don't see a ton of upside. Could Stroud go 403 touchdowns? Yeah, CJ Stroud is good. But fantasy-wise, not the best this week. Will Levis, we're not sure whether or not he's playing or not. I have the rankings done right now as if Rudolph is going to play. Drake May is still suffering from that concussion. I have it as Jacoby Brissett is going to be playing for the New England Patriots. Derek Carr, as you saw, at number 15 in the rankings, is expected to start once again for the Saints offense. It doesn't seem like a huge upgrade between Rattler, but it is. Trust me, this offense is going to move a little bit better with a healthier Derek Carr than a healthy Spencer Rattler. Andy Dalton is still, he could play, he could not play in terms of his injury, but he is not playing. Bryce Young is going to start for the Carolina Panthers. Finally, the defense rankings for the week. I got the Commandos at number 1, taking on the Giants in that terrible offensive line. Chiefs at 2, Texans, Jets. So the Thursday Night Football matchup at 3 and 4. Chargers, Titans, Eagles, Vikings, Bills, Saints against the Panthers. All of the Saints defense is beat up. Either playing the Panthers. You just stream against the Panthers, good things happen to you. I do have the Giants at number 11 against Washington just because of the pressure they can generate. It's not a great matchup for them, primarily because they're bad against the run. They're bad deep, 2 spots where Washington's offense is really good. And Jaden Daniels, very good at eluding pressure because of his speed, but they can still get you. And the Giants defense has been a pretty capable fantasy defense all year around. When you're going to have a team that generates that much pressure on the quarterback, you kind of have to play him a lot of the time as a fringe option. Like, I'm not saying go your way to bench a good defense for the Giants, but just take a look back the other way. We think about how some of these other teams can go. Yeah, Baltimore might beat up on Bo Nix. Sure. If that game's close, all Denver really wants to do is run the ball. easy passes from Bo Nix. He doesn't take a ton of chances. That limits fantasy upside on the other side of the ball. Ditto for the Bears. I like the Bears a lot in this spot, especially offensively, but I can see Kyler going back and forth. The Bears don't generate a ton of pressure. They're good at stopping the run. Montez Sweat is beat up in this game, and they're good at locking down receiver ones. That's great and everything, but if you're not forcing Kyler Murray to put the ball into the air into tight windows and he just takes off running for like 4 yards a carry, then that's not really doing anything for you. You're not generating fantasy points that way. It's the same in the Browns and Chargers game. Jameis, listen, you can always stream against Jameis because he might give you the ball. That's why the Chargers are at number 5. He'll just make terrible decisions. But on the other side, these Harbaugh coach teams are going to run with J.K. Dobbins, short passes with Herbert. Herbert doesn't throw a ton of picks anyway, and he doesn't get sacked a ton. And he might even take off using his legs as well. So the Browns defense doesn't have a ton of upside, where with Jameis on the other side, he might put up points on you. We also might throw 3 picks in the game too. So you want to take and inherit that variability and variance and have that sort of option coming back your way. The Vikings are the team I kind of like the most though, with Richardson out and Joe Flacco starting in this game. Flacco's been good, substantially better than Richardson, but it will cause him to throw the ball more against the Vikings, who could tee off. I know the Colts offensive line is good. Flores can bring some different looks at you, and Flacco is still a statue that he's not immune to. Listen, he can throw 3 touchdowns, he can throw 3 picks. Either way, it's good for the Vikings defense. They finally get to face all of these pass attempts and try to tee off on a statue-esque quarterback in this game. Once again, all of the rankings will get updated down in the description. Whenever news gets impacted, the picks are in there, the spread picks are in there. A new one, a refresher of the rankings and injury report, will come out on Saturday evening in the newsletter, and I'll have the Pat Mayo Experience update on Saturday as well. Use code Mayo Underdog to take advantage of that CJ Stroud free pick on Thursday Night Football as well. That'll do it for me. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!